Bateman is not a... I could never really view him just as a villain, pure and simple, because he's so ridiculous, you know? He's not your ordinary kind of Hannibal Lecter kind of scary.
I'm seeing signs of potential tear trough filler. I'm seeing continued use of Botox, which is really helping with those forehead wrinkles, probably some skin resurfacing.
You want to know.
No, not really.
Take responsibility for what you want to know. Don't say what other people. This is a conversation that I'm having with you right now.
You're on.
Tom Cruise was once Hollywood's golden boy. Perfect smile, perfect face, perfect life. At least that's what the cameras wanted you to believe. But lately, something's not adding up.
He did wake up, yeah. You know, when we were landing on descent, he...
By February 2025, fans couldn't stop talking about his face. In a Super Bowl commercial, he looked swollen, stretched, almost unrecognizable. Just minutes earlier, in a movie trailer, he looked completely normal.
Maybe fat grafting, too much fillers, post-procedure swelling, or weight gain. But recently in his Super Bowl ad, his jawline looks sharp, and his skin looks smoother, fuller, and tighter.
So what really happened to the man millions once worshipped? Let's find out. Born July 3rd, 1962, in Syracuse, New York, Tom's early life was far from picture perfect. His father, an electrical engineer, wasn't just strict, he was violent. Tom himself once called him a merchant of chaos, the kind of man who could explode without warning. And the chaos didn't stop at home. His family never stayed in one place. By age 14, Tom had already bounced through 15 different schools. Friends, stability, a sense of safety, he never had them. What he did learn was how to adapt, how to play roles, how to survive. Maybe that's why he became such a convincing actor later, but it came from pain, not talent. Then came another blow. At just 7 years old, Tom was diagnosed with severe dyslexia. Words didn't sit still for him. They moved, twisted, disappeared. Teachers called him lazy, classmates mocked him, and he was labeled slow. But Tom refused to quit. Instead, he found a loophole. He didn't just memorize his lines, he memorized everyone's. That obsession turned into his secret weapon in Hollywood, memorization over comprehension.
People have been asking for the movie for 34 years.
Yeah.
So I figured a couple more years. They'll be all right. They'll be all right.
If it had gone on for 10 years, would you have held out for 10 years?
By 1974, his mother, Mary Lee, had finally had enough. She grabbed her kids, left her abusive husband, and started over with nothing. Overnight, Tom's safe childhood was gone. His mom worked endless hours, cleaning houses, waiting tables, doing whatever it took. Meanwhile, Tom was hustling too, mowing lawns, delivering papers, anything for cash. But here's the part nobody talks about. Behind that struggling family image, Tom was being shaped into a man who believed survival meant control. Control over his image, control over his career, control over how the world saw him. And maybe that's exactly why, even today, his face looks less like aging and more like someone desperately trying to hold on to power. Because the question isn't just what happened to Tom Cruise's face, it's what is he so afraid of losing? That chaotic childhood didn't just teach Tom Cruise the value of hard work. It drilled into him a desperate need for control. By 1976, at just 14, he shocked his family by announcing he wanted to be a priest. Yes, Tom Cruise, the future king of Hollywood, once thought his destiny was behind a pulpit. He enrolled at a Catholic seminary in Ohio, waking up at dawn for prayers, chanting in Latin, following strict rituals. Teachers said he was serious, almost devout, but behind the holy image, trouble was brewing. One night, Tom and some classmates broke into the seminary's wine cellar and raided the communion wine. The so-called future priest got drunk on holy liquor and got caught, expelled. Just like that, the church lost a priest and Hollywood gained a rebel. Later, Tom claimed that's when he realized he wasn't built to follow rules. He was built to perform.
You saw her in Dead Calm, right?
Yes.
And you thought, I like her.
Yeah, I thought she's very talented.
Yeah, she is talented. The new movie's supposed to be great.
Yeah, she's extraordinary. You know?
She's coming on this show.
I know, she's
just a couple days.
By 1978, life finally calmed down. His mother married Jack South, a mild-mannered paint salesman who actually treated Tom with kindness. They settled in Glen Ridge, New Jersey, giving Tom something he'd never had before: stability. He wrestled for the school team until a knee injury crushed that dream. But fate had other plans. One day, his drama teacher pushed him to audition for the school play. Tom landed the lead in Guys and Dolls, and the transformation was instant. On stage, he wasn't the struggling dyslexic kid anymore. He wasn't the abused child of a violent father. He was powerful, he was admired, he was someone. He memorized every line, his castmates, the entire script. The audience went wild. For the first time, Tom Cruise felt alive, and he wanted more. Over the next year, he devoured every role he could, winning the school's drama award and realizing acting wasn't just fun, it was survival. By 1980, instead of college, Tom dropped the ultimate bombshell on his family. He was ditching school to chase fame in New York. With only $500 and a duffel bag of clothes, he moved into a filthy, rat-infested Hell's Kitchen apartment. Rent was $230. He worked as a busboy, starved himself on dollar pizza and instant noodles, and dropped 20 pounds in 3 months. His first soap opera audition ended with a brutal rejection. Too intense, that stung. So he rebranded himself. He ditched Thomas Mather IV and became Tom Cruise, a name that sounded sharper, bolder, unforgettable. In 1981, he landed a blink-and-you-miss-it role in Endless Love. He literally set a fire in one scene, got $500, and walked away. But here's the thing, Hollywood noticed. That restless energy, that obsessive control, it made him stand out. 2 years later, in 1983, during auditions for The Outsiders, he aimed for the role of Soda Pop. But halfway through, he stopped cold and said, "This isn't working for me."
We figured out, me and the co-pilot, that if we turned the oxygen off in the back guy, that we could make it at this altitude.
That was Tom Cruise in a nutshell. Rules? No thanks. Obedience? Forget it. He wasn't there to fit in. He was there to take over. Everyone in the room was stunned, even Rob Lowe, when Tom Cruise shut down his own audition for The Outsiders. But that bold move said everything about him. He wasn't going to force himself into a role he didn't believe in. He was calculating. He was already playing the long game. And it worked. Taking a smaller role actually made him stand out more. That same year, Risky Business dropped. Made on a shoestring $6.2 million budget, it hauled in over $63 million. One dance in his underwear made Tom Cruise a household name. Critics praised him, the Golden Globes nominated him, and Hollywood saw a star willing to risk humiliation if it meant getting noticed.
Experience?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was in high school, and I injured myself in wrestling, and I decided to go out for a
Musicals?
play. Yeah, a musical, because I sing, and
That's what happens to all wrestlers.
Then came All the Right Moves. Filmed in freezing Pennsylvania, the conditions were brutal, but Tom didn't care. He powered through, almost like he wanted to prove he could suffer harder than anyone else. That obsession with pushing his body would later morph into his trademark, doing his own death-defying stunts, even when people begged him not to. By 1985, he was working with Ridley Scott on Legend. The production was chaotic. His co-star Tim Curry even tore off his prosthetics in frustration, injuring himself. But Tom? He endured, quietly taking notes. If anything, it convinced him that the bigger the production, the more control he wanted over it. In 1986, The Color of Money paired him with Paul Newman under Martin Scorsese. Newman walked away with an Oscar, but Tom proved he could stand toe-to-toe with icons. And then came the rocket fuel, Top Gun. Tom didn't just play a fighter pilot, he practically became one. He logged over 40 hours of flight time, pulled real G-forces until he blacked out, and risked his life for authenticity. The Navy even changed its rules to accommodate him. The result? A $356 million box office juggernaut that made Tom Cruise the highest paid actor under 25. At $2 million a film, he wasn't just an actor anymore. He was an empire. But with empire came ego. In 1988's Cocktail, he trained so hard he broke 47 bottles just practicing flair bartending. The movie pulled in $171 million, proving audiences didn't care if the critics called it garbage. Tom Cruise's name sold tickets. That same year, Rain Man pushed him into deeper territory. Off camera, he was still haunted by the father who abandoned him at 12, and he channeled that rage into the role. He improvised scenes so raw that even Dustin Hoffman was caught off guard. The film swept the Oscars, and Tom pocketed $15 million thanks to a profit-sharing deal.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I'm supposed to be jaded by this point.
But 1989 changed everything. Born on the 4th of July forced Tom to break himself down physically and mentally. He lived in a wheelchair, dropped 35 pounds, even bled on camera during a real on-set injury, and kept filming. He donated $3 million of his salary to veterans groups, and for once, people thought he might actually care. But not everyone bought it. Vietnam vets showed up at the set in protest, furious that a pampered movie star who never served was cashing in on their pain. Some threw objects, some sent death threats. Tom Cruise wasn't just America's golden boy anymore. He was polarizing, loved and hated in equal measure, and instead of backing down, he doubled down. That same year, with producer Paula Wagner, he launched his own company. He pumped $2 million of his own money into it, took control of casting, rewrote scripts, and demanded real NASCAR crashes for Days of Thunder. In just 12 months, he secured $50 million in studio deals. Tom Cruise wasn't just acting anymore. He was building a kingdom, and the backlash only made him hungrier.
You kind of think, I'm not going to do that. Actually, you know what? That sounds too difficult, too scary, or have you just, everything's just gonna go, no, let's do it.
Is that for me?
Yeah.
Oh.
In 1990, Tom Cruise wasn't just playing a race car driver in Days of Thunder, he was hell-bent on becoming one. He trained with real NASCAR pros, pushed cars past 180 miles per hour, and even taped cue cards to his windshield so he wouldn't forget his lines. The result? He crashed hard. But to Tom, wrecking a 700-horsepower car wasn't failure. It was proof of his obsession with authenticity. And on that same set, something else happened. He met Nicole Kidman. She was 23, beautiful, and playing the doctor who saves his character. The chemistry was instant. Within months, Tom dumped his old life and married her on Christmas Eve, 1990. To the public, it looked like a fairy tale romance. Behind the scenes, it looked more like Tom was already scripting his own myth. The superstar with the perfect wife, perfect career, and perfect control. By 1992, he was back on fire with A Few Good Men. That courtroom scene with Jack Nicholson didn't just happen. It was filmed 95 times. 95 takes of Tom hammering the same line. Did you order the code red? Until it felt less like acting and more like psychological warfare. The movie made $236 million, and the scene became legendary. But it also showed how far Tom would push, even if it broke everyone else in the room.
We were fooling around in the scene, and I was just quoting him, and I just started doing it. And Rob said, let's put that in the scene. Let's use that in the movie. So there it is.
Then in 1994 came Interview with the Vampire. Fans and even the book's author said Cruise was all wrong for Lestat. Too polished, too clean-cut. But Tom went feral. He studied predators, slithered around the set like a snake, and even bit into live rats for realism. Mechanical ones too, filled with fake blood. But he wanted the audience to believe. The heavy makeup, the endless night shoots, the grotesque hunger. It was a different Tom Cruise, and it worked. Even the skeptical author admitted he gave a brave and powerful performance. But it was 1996 when Tom truly reinvented himself and Hollywood. Mission: Impossible wasn't just another action movie. It was Tom planting a flag. No stunt doubles, no shortcuts, no digital cheats. Hanging off the side of a speeding train at 70 miles per hour, he actually did it. Dangling in that silent white vault scene, holding himself inches above the floor, he nailed it in a single 6-minute take. The $80 million budget didn't go to CGI. It went to Cruise's obsession with making danger real. And in the same year, he flipped the script with Jerry Maguire. One moment, he's America's daredevil. The next, he's bearing his soul in a love story. It wasn't just acting versatility. It was Tom Cruise rewriting the rules of stardom. He didn't just want to play the hero. He wanted to own the game.
And I'll never forget meeting Renee. When she came in, there was just magic. You just saw this raw talent just there, and this spark.
By 1997, Tom Cruise wasn't just a superstar. He was Hollywood's obsession. Jerry Maguire made him a Golden Globe winner, and his ad-libbed line, "Show me the money," wasn't even in the script the way we know it. Tom screamed it over and over until it became a catchphrase that America couldn't escape. That wasn't just acting, that was branding. But from late 1996 to 1998, he locked himself into a project that nearly broke him, Eyes Wide Shut. Stanley Kubrick's final film turned into the longest shoot in movie history, 15 grueling months. Kubrick was notorious for torture-level perfectionism. One scene alone was filmed 95 times. Cruise was so stressed he developed an ulcer but refused to tell anyone. He didn't want to look weak, not to Kubrick, not to Nicole, not to anyone. 6 days after shooting wrapped, Kubrick was dead. The film became his haunting farewell. But for Tom and Nicole, it was the beginning of the end.
And Stanley, I don't care. Tell me it's going to be 2 years, Stanley. And he'd say, oh, Tom, don't be ridiculous. I mean, if it takes that long, you know, I mean, then what, you know, everything they say about us is true.
In 2000, Cruise doubled down on danger with Mission Impossible 2. Forget stunt doubles. He climbed 2,000-foot cliffs in Utah himself. At one point, he leapt 15 feet down onto rock again and again until he got it perfect. Then a helicopter came so close the spinning blades nearly grazed his head. The crew begged him to stop. Tom refused, because to him, flirting with death wasn't risk, it was control. By 2001, Cruise was diving into stranger territory with Vanilla Sky. He was the one who told Cameron Crowe to remake a Spanish film, even pulling Penelope Cruz, who he later started dating, into the exact same role she'd played before. In prosthetics, playing a disfigured narcissist, Cruise blurred the line between reality and his own carefully constructed mask. Critics were divided, but the movie made over $200 million and slowly gained cult status. Then came The Last Samurai in 2003. Tom trained for nearly 2 years, sword fighting, martial arts, Japanese language, becoming a Hollywood samurai warrior. He even did most of his own horseback battle scenes. The movie raked in $456 million and earned him another Golden Globe nod. But the whispers started. Why was a white actor the face of Japan's samurai legacy? To Tom, it was just another conquest, proof he could step into any culture and still dominate the screen. In 2004, Collateral flipped the script. Gone was the smiling hero. Tom showed up as Vincent, a silver-haired assassin in a gray suit, colder than ice. It shocked audiences. Suddenly, he wasn't the savior, he was the nightmare. And it worked. People couldn't stop talking about how terrifyingly good he was. 2005 brought Spielberg's War of the Worlds. Cruise flexed his power, even convincing Spielberg to pause another film just so his project could come first. They bought an actual Boeing 747 just to blow it up. The shoot stretched across 5 states and 73 days, the director's longest in a decade. But while aliens destroyed the world on screen, Tom's personal world was starting to crack. By 2008, he pulled the ultimate curveball in Tropic Thunder. Fat suit, bald head, thick hairy arms. Nobody even knew he was in the movie until he showed up on screen as Le Grossman, a foul-mouthed studio boss who danced like a lunatic. Critics called it genius. Fans called it hilarious. But insiders saw it differently. Tom Cruise wasn't just making fun of Hollywood execs. He was mocking the very system he controlled.
He fell asleep. He fell asleep. He slept the whole way.
At this point, it wasn't clear anymore. Was Tom Cruise the hardest working actor alive? Or a man addicted to proving he was untouchable? The wildest part? That outrageous Le Grossman character in Tropic Thunder was Tom Cruise's own idea. The fat hands, the sleazy dance moves, the bald head, it was all him. Paramount didn't even dare put him in the trailers. Terrified audiences would laugh for the wrong reasons. But when the reveal came, jaws dropped. For once, Cruise wasn't the pretty boy action star. He was a grotesque caricature, and he owned it. It was proof the man wasn't afraid to look stupid, and it scared Hollywood just as much as it impressed them. But Cruise's obsession with danger was only just beginning. In 2011, he scaled the Burj Khalifa in Ghost Protocol. Yes, the tallest building in the world. The crew had to drill into the skyscraper, break windows, and strap him into a harness so tight his legs went numb. Helicopters had only 30 minutes to hover and film, and the IMAX cameras weighed a ton. Still, Cruise refused a stunt double, practically begging to die on camera just to keep audiences hooked. Fast forward to Jack Reacher, 2012. He ripped through Pittsburgh streets in high-speed car chases, trained months for brutal hand-to-hand combat, and then the release was delayed because its opening scene mirrored the Sandy Hook massacre. Timing couldn't have been worse, but Cruise doubled down. His ex-military investigator was gritty, angry, and almost too real for audiences still raw from tragedy.
I know what you know. There's a lot, he's taken some criticism for the role because it doesn't aesthetically fit the role of Reacher perfectly according to the book.
And then came Mission Impossible, Rogue Nation, 2015. Cruise didn't just flirt with death. He held onto the side of an Airbus A400M as it took off, 8 times, 5,000 feet in the air, no real protective gear. Hit with 5 G-forces, he looked like he was being ripped apart mid-flight. Was this genius or a man with a death wish? In The Mummy, 2017, Cruise chased another high, 0 gravity. A plane climbed to 25,000 feet, then plummeted plummeted to simulate weightlessness. Multiple takes, only seconds of usable footage per drop, and no CGI. The result? A dizzy, chaotic stunt sequence that nearly broke the crew, yet Cruise pushed harder. By 2018, his luck snapped. On Fallout, he shattered his ankle leaping between rooftops in London. The footage stayed in the movie. Cruise limping in agony, still dragging himself across the roof. Production shut down for 6 months, but he came back hungrier than ever, turning a real injury into cinematic legend. Finally, Top Gun: Maverick, 2022. The film that silenced every critic. Cruise forced his co-stars into insane pilot training, strapped IMAX cameras into F-18 cockpits, and rejected every lucrative streaming offer during the pandemic. He waited 3 years just to bring it to theaters, and the gamble paid off. Nearly $1.5 billion later, Cruise wasn't just an actor. He was the last true movie star. But here's where it gets dark. Cruise's personal life has always been as explosive as his stunts. He was just 24 when he married Mimi Rogers in 1987. She was older, already a working actress, and a devoted Scientologist. Through her, Cruise got hooked on the religion that would dictate almost every choice he made afterward. Their marriage looked perfect from the outside, but inside, the cracks were vicious. Whispers swirled that Cruise couldn't have children, fueling speculation about his manhood. In 1993, Rogers twisted the knife in a Playboy interview, joking that Cruise might as well become a monk. It wasn't just shade, it was humiliation, and it set the tone for a lifetime of Cruise's relationships being as controversial, controlled, and chaotic as his career. Mimi Rogers' infamous monk comment wasn't just shade, it was a dagger. And when their marriage collapsed in 1990, she didn't sugarcoat why. According to Mimi, Tom had a two-word obsession: career first. He didn't know how to slow down, didn't know how to be a husband, and his deepening ties to Scientology only made things worse. Their marriage wasn't just ending, it was suffocating under the weight of his ambition and the church's control.
I've been Scientologist for over 30 years, and it's something that, as you know, without it, I wouldn't be where I am.
Then came Nicole Kidman. They met filming Days of Thunder and married the same year. To the outside world, they looked untouchable, Hollywood's golden couple. But behind closed doors, it was heartbreak layered under secrecy. Nicole's first pregnancy ended in an ectopic miscarriage at just 23 years old. She later admitted the grief was unspeakable, something society sweeps under the rug. The couple adopted Isabella and Connor, trying to patch the holes with family. But when Cruise filed for divorce in 2001, Nicole suffered another devastating miscarriage 3 months into the pregnancy. Her private loss collided with a public humiliation. The fairy tale marriage was exposed for what it was: pain wrapped in silence. And then, almost on cue, came Penelope Cruz. She was fiery, magnetic, and his co-star in Vanilla Sky. For 3 years, she stood by him, even dabbling in Scientology to stay close. But her Buddhist beliefs clashed with the church's iron grip. According to insiders, Scientology's leader David Miscavige never approved of her. One former member put it bluntly, "It's not enough to love Tom. You have to obey the church." When the relationship collapsed in 2004, whispers turned into scandal. Rumors spread that Scientology had started auditions for Tom's next wife. The church denied it, but the story was too explosive to die.
He could jet to a Scientology event and a movie premiere, but not make more time for Suri, like on her first day of school.
Enter Katie Holmes. In 2005, Tom's infamous Oprah couch jump turned his love life into a circus. Some saw passion, others saw mania. By 2006, the Italian castle wedding made global headlines. Katie gushed about marrying the man of her dreams, and baby Suri was born the same year. It looked like Cruise had finally found the one. But by 2012, that dream had curdled into fear. Katie blindsided Tom by filing for divorce and demanding full custody of Suri. Cruise, by all accounts, never saw it coming. The settlement was fast, quiet, and surgical, but the reason was clear: Katie wanted Suri out of Scientology's reach. That became the line in the sand. For Tom, the church was non-negotiable. For Katie, it was the monster she had to protect her daughter from.
On my part, but given the fact that, you know, he micromanages his life to such a degree, It's hard for me. It stretches my credulity to think that he didn't know that this was happening.
In the end, the split wasn't just another Hollywood divorce. It was a war between love, power, and the shadow of Scientology. And for once, Cruise wasn't the one in control. Since 2012, Tom Cruise hasn't been spotted with his daughter Suri. Their last public photo together was at Disneyland. She was only 6 years old. Then, silence. A decade rolled by. In 2024, Suri graduated high school, but Tom wasn't in the crowd. Instead, paparazzi caught him halfway across the world, rocking out at a Taylor Swift concert in London. The optics were brutal. America's biggest movie star skipped his daughter's milestone for a night out. Former Scientologists had an explanation: the church's notorious disconnection rule. If someone breaks away, you cut them off, family or not. Katie Holmes fought to keep Suri out of Scientology, and Tom chose loyalty to the church over being a father. Now Suri's 18 and free to decide her own path, but after 12 years apart, their bond looks shattered beyond repair.
6 years later, she arranges to escape.
And Tom's controversies didn't stop there. In 2005, he went after Brooke Shields for using antidepressants after giving birth, declaring there was no such thing as a chemical imbalance and that vitamins and exercise were all anyone needed. It was a stunning display of arrogance, dismissing postpartum depression as if it were a bad mood. Brooke clapped back hard with a New York Times op-ed, telling Cruise to stick to saving the world from aliens and leave mental health to doctors. Her words cut deep, and his half-hearted apology later felt less like remorse and more like damage control. But the root of it all traces back to 1986, when Mimi Rogers introduced Tom to Scientology. At first, he kept it quiet, but by 1990, the press blew it open. In a 1992 interview with Barbara Walters, Cruise admitted the church helped him overcome dyslexia. That was the beginning of his transformation from Hollywood's golden boy into Scientology's most famous soldier. Over time, he became inseparable from David Miscavige, the church's hardline leader. Insiders say Miscavige didn't just advise Tom, he controlled him. When Cruise balked at bizarre teachings about an alien ruler named Xenu, the church sent operatives like Marty Rathbun to drag him back into line, even during the grueling shoot of Eyes Wide Shut.
It is not true that you're not allowed to associate with non-believers. It's not even true that you're not allowed to associate with former members.
Then came 2008. A leaked video showed Tom gushing about Scientology like a zealot on fire. He claimed only Scientologists could truly help at car accidents. Only they understood the mind. Only they could save humanity. The church tried to erase the footage, but it was too late. Millions saw it, and the mask slipped. To many, Tom Cruise wasn't just a star anymore. He was a poster boy for a cult. The leaked 2008 Scientology video was unsettling enough, but the way Tom spoke in it, intense, robotic, almost manic. Fans whispered that it didn't feel like him anymore, as if the man had been replaced by the church's mouthpiece. Then came 2015, when HBO's Going Clear ripped the lid off everything. High-ranking ex-members painted Cruise not as the golden boy of Scientology, but as its prized possession. They claimed the church handpicked women for him to date, going so far as to wiretap Nicole Kidman when she was branded a troublemaker. One whistleblower described the process as white slavery, a chilling phrase that made Hollywood shudder. Even darker, insiders said Kidman had pulled Tom away from Scientology for years, and the church retaliated by spying on him through his own staff. But the controversies weren't just about control. They got deeply personal. In 2001, a male adult film star claimed he'd had an affair with Tom, even alleging it triggered his divorce from Nicole. Cruise hit back with a $100 million lawsuit. The man folded, admitted he lied, and Tom walked away with a $10 million judgment. It wasn't the first time either. Cruise had sued publishers before over rumors about his sexuality and won.
According to Scientology, you do not have to disconnect from one of your children just because they are connected to someone else.
And then came a more sinister revelation. A former Scientology executive exposed that between July and November 2001, Tom's most private auditing sessions, essentially confessions, had been secretly videotaped. The church said it was for quality check. The truth? Every word was piped straight to David Miscavige. Worse, insiders claimed the church deliberately waited until Tom's divorce from Nicole was final before pulling him fully back into the fold. What should have been therapy was surveillance, proof even Scientology's poster boy wasn't safe. Fast forward to late 2023. Mitch Brisker, another ex-executive, dropped a bombshell. Tom Cruise wasn't Scientology's leader. He was its #1 victim. Brisker described Miscavige as a puppet master controlling even trivial things, like the soap stocked on the church's cruise ship. Cruise, he claimed, wasn't free. He was trapped. Leah Remini, who fled the church in 2013, backed it up, revealing that anyone inside who dared criticize Tom faced brutal punishments. In other words, Cruise wasn't just worshipped, he was weaponized. But then in February 2025, something shifted. Cruise appeared in a flashy Super Bowl ad, and fans immediately noticed his face looked swollen, stretched, almost unnatural. Yet just 10 minutes earlier, a trailer for Mission Impossible aired, showing him looking completely normal. Social media exploded with conspiracy theories. Was it botched surgery, CGI trickery, or was Tom hiding something far stranger? Once again, the man who built his empire on control was at the center of a mystery he couldn't explain. By 2025, the speculation about Tom Cruise's face was impossible to ignore. Plastic surgeons weighed in, pointing to excessive fillers as the likely culprit. His once razor-sharp jawline looked softened, swollen, almost blurred. One doctor bluntly said the stretched skin and puffiness were classic signs of too many injections. The internet didn't hold back either. Memes and side-by-side photos went viral, fueling the idea that Hollywood's most fearless action star had lost the one thing he never admitted to caring about: his looks. Cruise, of course, had his own explanation. In May, he told People magazine that his body was being pushed to the brink by the insane stunts for the next Mission Impossible. He claimed he was downing nearly a dozen eggs every morning, plus bacon, sausage, toast, and coffee, just to keep up. Flying on top of a vintage biplane at 120 miles per hour, he said, burned so many calories it was 3 times faster than early wing-walking planes. In his words, he needed pure protein and fuel just to stay alive up there. But the critics weren't having it. By July, whispers had turned into full-blown commentary, with British talk show host Jonathan Ross delivering the punchline nobody wanted to hear. Cruise's face looked like Play-Doh. Not ugly, Ross claimed, just not him anymore. And the internet erupted. Fans, once loyal to every daring stunt and charming smile, piled on mercilessly. Side-by-side comparisons flooded social media, highlighting a jawline that had softened, cheeks that seemed swollen, and expressions that no longer carried the familiar sparkle. For a man who once defined Hollywood perfection, the backlash wasn't just criticism. It felt like a public reckoning. By August, the narrative shifted slightly when Tom himself finally spoke out. In an interview, he pulled back the curtain on just how brutal his stunts had become. One sequence, a death-defying aerial flip in a plane, was so punishing that he was literally hanging from a seatbelt as the aircraft tumbled. The toll was immediate and terrifying. Swollen, bruised fingers that looked bent beyond recognition, joints screaming from the strain, and a body pushed to its absolute limits. His director corroborated the story, revealing that weather delays in Africa had forced reschedules, further stretching an already punishing shoot. And yet, for many, the confession rang hollow. Injuries and stunt fatigue might explain some of the physical changes, but they didn't erase the growing suspicion. Was it really just the stunts? Or had the man who once laughed at gravity begun fighting a different battle? One against time, against aging, and maybe even against himself in the mirror? To fans, the face staring back on screen didn't feel like Tom Cruise at all. It felt like a carefully reconstructed version of him, a man clinging desperately to an image that reality, Hollywood pressure, and perhaps even cosmetic intervention had quietly stolen away. And that, perhaps, was the most shocking twist of all. The idea that even the most untouchable action star could become someone else entirely. That's it for today. See you in the next video. Until then, goodbye.